He said, when God says, I want to guide whoever I want to guide, and I want to misguide whoever I want to misguide, it doesn't mean it as it's said literally. What do you mean then? He said it means God guides whoever is looking for his guidance. And he leaves in misguidance those who are not interested in his guidance. You see, if I say God guides whoever he wants to guide, and he misguides whoever he wants to misguide, then according to Ja'far al-Sadiq, it's not just that you guide whoever you want to guide. What's just in that? But according to Ja'far al-Sadiq, you guide whoever's looking for your guidance. And you keep in misguidance whoever doesn't want your guidance. In humanity, there are people who say, God, show us guidance. And there are others who say, we're not interested, we'll live this life as we want to live it. That's one theological issue. The second theological issue in the Shiite world, infallibility. What does infallible mean according to a Shiite? The conception is, infallible means imams can't sin. As you know, infallibility according to Shiites is that every prophet of God and the successors of those prophets, the imams, are seen as being infallible. Does infallible mean they can't sin? No. Infallible means they can sin, but they wouldn't sin. Can I now, for example, go and take an illegal substance? Yes, I've got the capability of walking towards the substance, picking it up, buying it, and taking it. The question is, would I take an illegal substance? According to the Shiite conception of infallibility, the idea was that a prophet of God can sin, but wouldn't sin. Two examples are given. The first, Ali ibn al-Hussein, the fourth Imam of the Twelfers, and of the Zaydis, and of the Ismailis, comes forward and states, someone asks him, you are meant to be infallible. It doesn't help us much. He said to him, why? He said, because you people are like robots. You can't sin. So how can we take you as an example when you can't sin? He said, it's not that we can't sin, it's that we wouldn't sin. He said to him, what do you mean? He said, if I were to tell you now, can you walk in the street naked? The reply was, yes, I can walk in the street naked. He said to him, would you? He said to him, no, I wouldn't. He said to him, why? He said, obviously because of the social surroundings. If people see me walking naked, they're going to think, what's he doing? He said, likewise with us, we can commit a sin, but we wouldn't because of the Lord that watches us. Can, but wouldn't. And therefore you find in the story of Yusuf in the Quran, the question is, could Yusuf had gone with Zulaykha? When she closes the door on him, can he be tempted by her desires? Yes, he can. Was he tempted? No, he wasn't. The capability of the human being and the desires means you can commit a sin. But they've got such a cognizance of their Lord that they wouldn't because of the Lord that watches them. The reason, therefore, they said infallibility is key within Shia theology is that they said in terms of the prophets, God tells us to obey them. God would not tell us to obey those who themselves can't look after their own life. If a person himself is constantly sinning, or if a person is making mistakes, how can I obey someone who himself is constantly making errors? And so therefore this rationality came forward and said that when a verse tells you in the Quran, obey the Prophet, if you say the Prophet can commit a sin, then you are saying that the message is not one which flows. I have to obey someone who commits a sin. The question then arises, how about the verse which says the Prophet Muhammad frowned at the blind man? The Shia do not believe he frowned at the blind man. They believe it was another of his companions who was sitting there who frowned at that blind man. Someone will say, how dare you say it was that companion? The reply is, how dare you say the Prophet would have such manners? It's ironic that if you came to someone now and said, it's another companion who frowned at the blind man, you'll find people who'll jump up and say, how dare you? Well, hold on a minute. You're willing to say the Prophet who brought morality would frown, but a normal companion wouldn't? And so you found here that unlike the Sunni theology, which states that the Prophet Muhammad would not sin and would not commit error in revelation, but may commit error outside of revelation, the Shia come forward and say, in every area of his life, there is no sin or no error whatsoever. Likewise, this infallibility is transferred to the Imams who are seen as the protectors of the message of the Prophet Muhammad. And the Shiite within their theology use chapter 4 verse 59 as saying that the leaders and authority from amongst you are to be obeyed in the way Muhammad was obeyed. Number 3, a third theological principle, intercession. The Shiites are of the belief of the narration of the Prophet Muhammad that 3 groups of people will be able to intercede for us on the day of judgment. Who are they? The first group are the prophets of God. This is known in the Arabic language as Shafa'ah. The first group who can intercede for you on the day of judgment are the prophets. The second are the scholars. The third are the martyrs. They can intercede for you on the day of judgment. Someone will turn around and say, then why do you believe your imams can have shafa'ah? Well, if you look at each imam of the Shia, be it Ja'far al-Sadiq, be it Ali ibn Musa, be it Zayn al-Abidin, do you agree that they were scholars in their time? I think most Muslims agree. Do you believe they died as martyrs? I believe both Muslims agree. The intercession equation adds up there. Therefore, you find theologically, these are seen as being amongst the main beliefs. Number 4, jurisprudentially. Why do you pray with your hands down? That's a question that's constantly asked. What's that stone that you prostrate on? Why do you combine your prayers? Jurisprudence. Interesting area. Once again, our Sunni brothers, when it comes to jurisprudence and theology, there are differences. Theologically, if I ask somebody who's from another school in Islam, theologically, what are you? He may say to me, I'm an Ash'arite. Jurisprudentially, what are you? I'm a Hanafi. As a Shia Ithna Ashari, theologically, you are Ja'far ibn Muhammad. Jurisprudentially, you are Ja'far ibn Muhammad. There's no need to go to anyone else. Theologically, someone will ask, why do you bring Ja'far ibn Muhammad's name so much? Is it because he's the highest authority? No, he's not. But in the time when Islamic knowledge and beautiful constructive dialogue was taking place, Ja'far ibn Muhammad would debate with Abu Hanifa, who would debate with Malik ibn Anas. And then later on you had Imam al-Shafi'i and Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal. That period was a period of crystallization as well as a period of discussion on jurisprudence. Why do the Shia pray their hands down? Well, one may equally ask the question, why do the Malikis pray with their hands down? If you go to North Africa, you may find in Tunisia or Morocco or Algeria a group who all pray with their hands down. Have you seen anyone attack them? Someone will say, well, the narration is Malik bin Anas lost his hands, and that's why. Someone comes forward with such narrations that there was a period when someone had lost their hands, and that's why. Malik ibn Anas was so scrupulous in the hadiths that what is the Muwatta? The Muwatta is a book of narrations which comes from the people of Medina. Because to Malik ibn Anas, he differed with Abu Hanifa when it came to jurisprudence. Malik ibn Anas would say, the hadiths which I narrate within the Muwatta are from Medinan narrators, people from Medina. Why from Medina? Well, if we say Malik ibn Anas was born in the earliest part of the 2nd century, he wants to be as close as possible to the Prophet Muhammad, sure? So he's going to take his jurisprudence and his hadiths from those who lived in Medina and who saw the way the Prophet Muhammad developed his jurisprudence. If Malik ibn Anas and the Maliki school pray with their hands down, well, if the Ithna Ashari pray with their hands down, what's the big difference? How about when it comes to combining the prayer? The basis of the jurisprudence of combination of prayer, number 1. In Ithna Ashari thought it's more recommended to separate than combine. Although, unfortunately, you'll find most Ithna Ashari Shia lazy, but you'll find the majority of them will come forward and tell you that you have to separate, but then you can combine. Imam al-Bukhari, within his ahadith, mentions numerous occasions outside of travel, outside of when it was raining, where the Prophet combined his prayers without a shadow of doubt. But when the Prophet was asked by Ibn Abbas, why do you combine your prayers? He said, this religion has come to bring ease and not hardship. It's ironic that some of us who live in the Western world, our lunch breaks are so tight that combination helps sometimes. Or sometimes by the time we get home, we don't want to pray Asr late. It helps sometimes. And its basis, once again, is jurisprudential. And the other schools in Islam have their opinions about combination. If I'm not mistaken, the only one who's strict on it is Abu Hanifa, who says only at Muzdalifah you can combine. Other than that, no. Malik ibn Anas and Shafi'i are much more lenient on their rulings regarding combination. What's the stone you pray to? You polytheists. Well, what's that big black cube you all pray to? It's ironic how the human being's mind is so fickle. We all pray to a big black cube. That's not shirk. But a small piece of clay this big, they're all mushrik. No, I don't pray to the cube. I pray to God, but the cube is how I reach God. Well, the same with the clay. I don't pray to that piece of clay. But from the narrations that I've read, the Prophet Muhammad, on his forehead, there used to be the marks of mud. If there were marks of mud, it meant he was praying on clay. Those who come forward and say we pray on carpets, I don't mind. It's a jurisprudential ruling. But just one thing, carpets came into the Prophet's mosque 300 years after he died. So I don't know which one's closer to his sunnah. 300 years later when the carpets first came? Or is it a case of what? Is it a case of the mud? Someone will say, well, the mud has to be from Karbala. No, it doesn't have to be from Karbala. I've prayed on the mud of Manhattan, of all holy places. You pray on mud. Mud is earth. So you come forward and you prostrate on there. How many prostrations are there in the prayers? 2. What's the philosophy of the first one? You came from clay. What's the philosophy of the second one? You're going to return to clay. So what's the best thing to prostrate on? Clay. If you go to the very root of the philosophy of worship, the very root tells you you came from clay and you'll return to clay. When you prostrate on the clay, you are returning to the very essence of humanity. But it doesn't mean that it has to be from Karbala. Because there are some, I'm not going to deny, Shia will come forward and say, my clay has to be from Karbala. If it's not from Karbala, what do you mean it's got to be from Karbala? It's a piece of clay, for goodness sake. You just put your head down. The reason Karbala has prominence is because the Prophet Muhammad himself would constantly narrate that my grandson will be killed in Karbala. That's why. And because he used to say, Husaynun minni, wa ana min al-Husayn. Ahabba Allah, man ahabba Husayna. Hussein is from me. I am from Hussein. Allah loves the one who loves Hussein. That's why the reason came forward to say that the dust of Karbala, which was given to Salama, became blood when Hussein died. And that dust is a holy dust. Therefore, that's another jurisprudence issue. Ashhadu anna Aliyan waliyullah. It's a jurisprudential issue. They say the Shia say, Ashhadu anna Aliyan waliyullah. It wasn't there in the time of the Prophet. You're right, and I agree with you. Is it obligatory? No, it's not. Any Shia who says, Ashhadu anna Aliyan waliyullah, that I swear that Ali is the guardian of Allah's message on earth, after, of course, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, anyone who says Ashhadu anna Aliyan waliyullah with the idea that it's part of the adhan, his adhan is void. It's not part of the adhan. So why did Ashhadu anna Aliyan waliyullah come about then? I'll tell you what, if for 60 years in Islamic history, this man was being cursed from the pulpits in Syria, 60 years. And anyone who doubts him being cursed from the pulpits can only go to the hadith books. Because I don't know about you, but I don't think Marwan ibn al-Hakam loved Ali ibn Abi Talib. Nor do I think Abdul Malik ibn Marwan loved Ali ibn Abi Talib. Nor Yazid ibn Abdul Malik. Nor Walid ibn Yazid. Would you love the man who annihilated your ancestors at Badr and Uhud? Do you not remember in Siffin when Ali ibn Abi Talib walked in front of Muawiyah and said to him, you don't remember what I did to your dad in Badr? Your granddad in Badr? Because in Badr, who was the one who finished Muawiyah's granddad? Hind's father. He said to me, don't remember? That's why Yazid, when he killed Hussein, the famous lines of poetry came forward. Later أشياخي ببدر شهدوا جزع الخزرج من وقع الأهل لأهلوا واستهلوا فرحا ثم قالوا يا يزيد لا تشل لعبت هاشم بالملك فلا خبر جاء ولا وحي نزل. Yazid himself said, I wish my ancestors were present. He had Hussein's head next to him. He used to poke the head of the grandson of Rasulullah while his head was next to him. And he used to say, I wish my ancestors from Badr were present so that they see what I have acted. Bani Hashim, there was no revelation and there was no news. They just played with the kingdom. Later on, the very people who Muhammad fought at Badr and Uhud became the very caliphs who looked after the religion of Islam. And that's why Ashhadu anna Aliyan waliyullah was a political response to the cursing of Ali ibn Abi Talib on the Friday prayer.